Just last Shabbat, my heart was absolutely bursting with pride seeing our 13 consecration students on this bima. 13 beautiful children who stood right here, their faces beaming with sheer joy that radiated throughout every corner of this sanctuary. During our service, those kindergarten and first grade students, he made sure to make sure we knew that there was one first grade student. It's very important. So throughout our service, they lead us in prayer with the words of the Shema. They sang their hearts out to Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, reminding us that it is our job to create the peace that we want to see in this world. They told us what they love learning about here at Temple Israel. And then they came to the Ark one by one to receive Torahs with covers created by their families and took to the microphone to tell us what they love about Judaism and about learning. Consecration celebrates a student and by extension their family choosing to embark upon the journey of Jewish education. We call these moments of ritual life cycle moments, for they mark important milestones along each person's life path. Just 2 days after consecration, I had the joy of participating in the naming ceremony of 2 of our students, bestowing upon them the Hebrew names that they will one day be called to Torah with at their B'nai Mitzvah. I stood with these children as their mother explained to them why she chose their Hebrew names and shared the blessings that she hoped would bring joy to their lives as they grow. And a couple of days after that, I sat with the B'nai Mitzvah family and spoke with the parents about the blessing that they are honored to write for their child as he becomes a bar mitzvah this spring. I challenged them to think about what their hopes and dreams are for their child as he moves into this next stage of his life. What does becoming bar mitzvah mean in your life, in the life of your son? What does it mean to your family, I asked. What qualities do you want him to grow within himself as he steps into the role of a Jewish adult? What do you wish to bless him with in this moment? What do you want to teach him? As I look back over these 7 days, I'm grateful that my week was highlighted by these moments of joy and blessing in the lives of our children and our community. As a rabbi, there really is nothing better than those kind of moments. Each of these rituals asks us to think deeply about the kinds of blessings that we want to share, the kinds of wisdoms and truth that we want to pass down. It's more than a speech about a job well done. It's a real opportunity to share blessings and words of wisdoms for the future of each child. In my mind, this blessing that you write for a B'nai Mitzvah is somewhat similar to the process of engaging in the writing of an ethical will. An ethical will, unlike a legal last will and testament, is the exercise of putting your words, your personal values, your memories, the hard-won lessons of your life, your hopes and dreams for your loved ones as they continue to grow down on paper. It can be written at any point in your life, but it is in so many ways a spiritual practice that can help us distill what's really important. So as you might imagine, with so many opportunities to think about prayers and blessings for the future, when I sat down to prepare for this Shabbat, my heart and my mind were still very much in the space of these beautiful life cycle moments, which is in a nutshell, by the way, why we continue to study Torah year after year, because we bring something new to Torah each time we encounter it. And this year, as I came to our Torah portion this week, Chaye Sarah, with my mind and heart turned towards blessings, toward those meaningful life cycle moments, toward elevating the beauty and individuality of each person's life and their journey and its importance to both their family and the life of our Temple Israel family, I found myself staring at 4 stark, cold, and detached lines of eulogy for the matriarch of our people, Sarah. In this portion that's named for her, Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, we read these 4 verses. The Torah says, Sarah lived to be 127 years old, such was the span of Sarah's life. Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, that is in Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham proceeded to mourn for Sarah and to bewail her. Then Abraham rose up from upon his dead wife and spoke to the Hittites, saying, I am a foreigner living for a time among you. Sell me a grave site so that I may bury my dead here. That's it. She lived to be 127 years old. She died in Kiryat Arba, and that's all. And then Abraham got up and went to buy a burial plot. That's all we get. How incredibly disappointing. How unbelievably hurtful to this woman who dedicated her life to her faith and to her family. How could the Torah not include more about a woman who it is said to be the inspiration of the Proverbs prayer of Eshet Chayil, the woman of valor? Why are we left to wonder about who Sarah was in this moment to her husband, her children, and her community? The last time that we see Sarah alive in Torah, she's actually celebrating the weaning of her son Isaac. Then, at the start of this week's portion, just chapters later, Sarah has died. The Midrash tells us that Sarah died of heartbreak, being told that Abraham took her beloved son up to Mount Moriah to be sacrificed. She died of grief, the rabbis say. Another Midrash that I shared on Rosh Hashanah says that the calls of the shofar that we sound in the new year mirror her cries when she hears that Isaac was saved not by his father, but only because an angel came and stayed his hand. In that moment, the rabbis say, her soul left her body and she died. And then Sarah is eulogized by a mere 4 verses of Torah that say really nothing about her. We're not the only ones to be troubled by this message, though, and the rabbis make an effort to do more than tell us why she died so abruptly. They focus on the way that Sarah's age is written out in the Torah, which instead of writing it the way most of us would say it, which is to say 127 years old, it says that Sarah was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. It's written out in that way. And the rabbis tell us that it is because every day of Sarah's life was the equivalent of them all. At the age of 100 years, she was like age 20 in strength. And at age 20, she was like age 7 in modesty and in purity. And at age 7, she was like age 20 in intelligence. And at age 20, she was like 100 in righteousness. And while these interpretations have provided me some measure of comfort in the past years of Torah study, this year in particular, I'm finding it harder and more disappointing not to know more about Sarah and who she was in our sacred text. Who was she? What did she value in life? What lessons did she wish to pass on to those who would come after her? How did she want to be remembered? And in truth, that's the case not only for Sarah, but so many women in the Torah. Life seemed to happen to Sarah. She and so many women are not active participants in their own lives here. Modern poet Ruchama Weiss captures Sarah's life in a poem comprised of a catalog of passive verbs, adjectives, and clipped sentences. Her poem, called In the Life of Sarah, an Abstract, she writes the following: was married off, barren, taken on a journey, taken on another journey, beautiful, desired, given to Pharaoh, returned with her husband and with property, barren, gave her handmaid to her husband, her handmaid got pregnant, abused her handmaid, taken on another journey, received a promise, laughed and denied it, given to the king of Gerar, returned with her husband and with property, gave birth, expelled her handmaiden, died. Rabbi Dr. Wendy Zierler explains that Weiss's poem portrays a beautiful woman acted upon instead of acting, dragged from place to place and twice passed off as Abraham's sister to foreign kings. When Sarah acts independently, she appears morally suspect, offering her handmaid Hagar to her husband only to later abuse Hagar and expel her. Sarah laughs upon hearing that as an old woman she's about to become pregnant. She's scolded for this, even though Abraham does the same thing without consequence. Weiss's poem makes no mention of the Akedah. Sarah does not participate in that story. The single word last line, meta, she died, suggests a lonely death. Sarah having been separated at the end of her life from Abraham's religious and familial mission. All told, Weiss's The Life of Sarah, an Abstract, offers a stinging critique of this founding mother's life with Abraham. The poem participates in an important strand of feminist Bible criticism, aiming at exposing the patriarchal nature of the Bible and the limits of its places on female agency, bodily autonomy, and voice. For those of us feminists who want to live with the Bible as a guiding and influential force, this cannot be the last word on Sarah. We need to find something positive in Sarah's life story, some redemptive addenda to the abstract. After all, God repeatedly insists that Sarai, or Sarah, needs to be the mother of this new nation. In Genesis 17, when God changes Abram's name to Abraham, saying that he will be the father of many, Hamon, nations, he also changes Sarai's name to Sarah, a transitional moment in Sarah's life not included in the summary of this poem. However, this is the only time in the Bible when God changes a woman's name. It is important. Sarah is more than just a passive participant that the Torah describes throughout Genesis, and she is more than 4 verses of her pitiful eulogy. And so it's our job to discover more, to study more, to help tell the story of this mother who was not only a wife and not only a mother, but a person in her own right, a human being with a story to tell, with wisdom to share, and with values to teach. As I read Chaye Sarah in preparation for this Shabbat, my first thought was what would Sarah's ethical will say? What would she want us to know about her life, about the experiences that had taught her? What did Sarah have to say about God, about faith, about welcoming the stranger, about becoming a mother and knowing that her son would father a great nation? What would she want to tell us about what it meant to be given to 2 different kings and losing her bodily autonomy? Why was she afraid of Ishmael and Hagar? Did she regret any of her choices? What did she learn? And what could we learn from her? We have to find Sarah's ethical will in our text. She can't write her own, but we can write ours. And so on this Shabbat, I invite you to consider, if you were to sit down and write it today, or this week, or this month, what would your ethical will say? How would you want to share the values of your life with the next generation? If you were given the opportunity to share your most important truths and values and stories, what would they be? I hope you'll take the time to engage in this really beautiful and meaningful spiritual practice in the days and weeks to come. And if you're willing to share what you come up with, my door, our doors, are always open, and we would be proud and honored to listen. Shabbat Shalom.